The air hangs thick with the tang of olive oil lamps flickering low, their flames dancing shadows across stone walls etched by centuries of prayer. You hear at first a low rumble, like thunder rolling in from the desert, growing into the thunder of hooves and the sharp crack of siege engines splintering wood. Then the screams, not the wild cries of battle, but something deeper, a chorus of voices breaking against the night, women calling names into the void as flames lick the sky above the Mount of Olives. Dust chokes your throat, mixing with the metallic bite of blood already spilled. Figures in scale armor pour through a breach in the wall, their faces smeared with sweat and fury, swords glinting under torchlight. One by one, the doors of the convent shatter. 400 voices rise in defiance, then fall silent. But this is just the beginning. What follows will echo through empires, a shadow that no king, no god, could outrun. Hold on, we're stepping into the heart of it now. What you're about to hear involves systematic violence against women of faith, captured and broken in the name of conquest. These events are drawn from ancient chronicles, etched in stone and bone, but they cut deep. If the weight feels too heavy, step away, I'll understand. For those who stay, we honor the lost not by lingering on their pain, but by tracing the gears of the empire that ground them down. Imagine a world balanced on the edge of two suns, the golden eagle of Byzantium clawing at the fading stars of Rome, and the fire altar of Persia, fed by Zoroastrian flames that burn brighter with every victory. This wasn't chaos. This was a machine, oiled by ambition and betrayal, turning slowly toward Jerusalem in the spring of 614. Khosrow II, Shah of the Sasanian realm, sat in his palace at Ctesiphon, a city of marble arches and hanging gardens where the Tigris whispered secrets of power. He wasn't a monster born from myth, but a man forged in the fires of survival. His father, Hormizd IV, had ruled with a fist that crushed too many nobles, sparking revolt. Khosrow, barely 20, fled to the Byzantine Emperor Maurice, begging for an army to reclaim his throne. Maurice obliged, sending legions that shattered the usurper Bahram Chobin and restored the young prince. Gratitude bound them like chains, until Phocas, a lowly centurion, murdered Maurice in 602 and draped his corpse over the Milvian Bridge for the ravens. That betrayal lit the fuse. Khosrow vowed vengeance, not for empire alone, but for the father figure slain. This wasn't personal rage, the chronicles whisper. This was accounting. He unleashed his armies like hounds from the hunt, sweeping through Armenia, Mesopotamia, Syria. Cities fell like dominoes. Antioch in 611, Damascus the next year. By 613, his general Shahrbaraz, a hawk-faced warrior whose name meant boar of the realm, had carved a bloody path to the Levant. Jerusalem, that stubborn knot of stone and faith, stood as the prize. To the Christians who filled its streets, it was the navel of the world, birthplace of their God, guarded by walls thick as scripture. To Khosrow, it was a ledger entry. Conquer it, and Byzantium bled. But Khosrow wasn't blind to the board. Jews, chafing under Byzantine edicts that barred them from the city since 70, saw in the Persians a key to the gates. Whispers spread from Babylonian exiles. Aid the Shah and rebuild the temple. 20,000 rebels slipped into the ranks, their daggers hidden under prayer shawls. Shahrbaraz laid siege on April 15, 614, his catapults hurling stones the size of wagons. For 21 days, the defenders held, arrows whistling like vengeful spirits. Then a tower crumbled. The walls wept dust. The machine engaged. Dust settles, but the echo doesn't. Picture the streets of Jerusalem that May morning, narrow veins pulsing with pilgrims and merchants, the air sweet with incense from the Holy Sepulchre. Patriarch Zachariah, a man whose white beard framed eyes heavy with the weight of flocks scattered by heresy, climbed the ramparts one last time. He was no warrior, but his voice had steadied kings and consoled widows. Born in Gaza to a line of shepherds turned scribes, Zachariah had risen through the ranks of the church, mending schisms with words sharper than steel. He prayed aloud that dawn, his hands tracing the sign of the cross over the city, begging for walls to hold like faith itself. Below, the Persian host surged. Shahrbaraz, astride a black stallion caparisoned in silk, directed the breach with a nod. His men, armored in lamellar scales that caught the sun like dragon hide, poured through. joined by Jewish allies whose cheers mixed with the clash of bronze. The defenders fought street by street, but numbers broke them. Zachariah watched from the Church of the Resurrection as smoke rose from the suburbs. He ordered the true cross, that splinter of wood, said to have borne the Savior hidden in a silver reliquary beneath the altar. Too late. Persian scouts, guided by turncoats, smashed the crypt doors. The demand came at noon. Shahrbaraz, his face scarred from 20 campaigns, rode to the Patriarch's side under a banner of parley. "Yield the city and the relic," he growled through an interpreter, his voice like gravel under chariot wheels. "Khosrow offers mercy to the faithful." Zachariah's eyes narrowed. Mercy? From men who burned churches in Antioch? He glanced at the faces around him. Monks in black robes, their beads clutched like lifelines. Women herding children toward the Mamilla pool, its waters a false sanctuary. "The cross stays with us," he replied, his tone steady as bedrock. "It is not yours to claim." Shahrbaraz's laugh was short, bitter. He signaled. The assault resumed. By dusk, the inner walls buckled. Persians and their allies flooded the holy places, torches hissing against holy oils. Zachariah barricaded himself in the sepulchre, but hands dragged him out, chaining his wrists with irons meant for galley slaves. The true cross was wrenched free, paraded through streets slick with blood, its silver case dented by careless grips. Shahrbaraz claimed it as trophy, but it was Khosrow's command that sealed the horror. Reports from the front, carried by couriers on lathered horses, demanded not just victory, but erasure. "Leave no root," one dispatch read, inked in royal vermilion. The machine turned. Night fell like a shroud, but the screams pierced it. In the shadow of the city walls, at the pool of Mamilla, thousands huddled priests, merchants, families whose only crime was prayer. The water, once cool for baptisms, turned red as soldiers waded in, swords rising and falling. A deacon named Thomas, his robes torn, tallied the fallen in whispers, his quill later scratching numbers into a ledger. 4,500 at the pool alone, or 24,000 if the tales swelled with grief. Historians debate the count, some say 60,000 souls in all, others half that, but the bones don't lie. Excavators in 1989 unearthed a cave nearby, its floor a jumble of skulls and femurs, dated to that very spring by coins fused in the crush. This wasn't frenzy. This was the system at work. Incentives for captains who filled quotas of captives, reports funneled back to Ctesiphon, tallying heads like grain silos. Zachariah, bound and beaten, was marched to a tent where Shahrbaraz offered wine laced with mockery. "Your God fled," the general said, gesturing to the empty altar. The patriarch spat blood, his spirit unbroken. "He weeps with us." Shahrbaraz shrugged. Orders were orders, and Zachariah joined the chain of 35,000 survivors, yoked like oxen toward Persia. A modern echo lingers. In boardrooms today, quotas drive cuts, lives reduced to lines on spreadsheets. The machine endures. But the true fracture came not in the streets, but on the heights. Shift your gaze to the Mount of Olives, where olive groves whispered psalms to the wind. There, in a convent carved from limestone, 400 nuns had woven their lives into silence and song. They were the brides of heaven, veiled in black, their days measured in bells and bread shared at dawn. No names survive in full. The chronicles blur them into a litany of light, but one stands clear. Sister Maria, a widow from Bethlehem who entered the order after her husband's fever claimed him, her hands calloused from tending herb gardens that healed the city's poor. At 35, she led the vespers, her voice a thread pulling the sisters through Byzantine taxes and Lombard raids. That night, as the city's glow turned to ember, she barred the convent gate with a pew from the chapel. The rumble reached them first, then the shouts. Persian riders, their horses foam-flecked from the charge, circled the hill like wolves scenting fold. Shahrbaraz's lieutenants, flush with victory's wine, demanded entry. "Surrender and live as servants," one bellowed, his accent thick with Mesopotamian dust. Maria climbed the wall, her veil whipping in the breeze. "We serve one master," she called back, her words carrying like incense. The sisters gathered behind her, psalters clutched as shields, their chants rising, "Kyrie eleison." The officer laughed, signaling his archers. Arrows thunked into wood, one grazing Maria's arm, drawing a line of fire. Dawn broke gray. The gate splintered under rams wrapped in wet hides. Soldiers burst in, faces twisted by the thrill of untaken spoils. They herded the nuns into the courtyard, dividing them like livestock, at market 50 to this captain, 30 to that. Maria fought, her fists bruising knuckles, until a blow felled her. The air filled with sobs, the rustle of veils torn away. What followed was no storm, but a deliberate unraveling. Bodies pressed against stone, cries muffled by hands that knew no mercy. Some sisters, faces serene as martyrs' icons, whispered prayers through the violation, their faith a blade turned inward on the tormentors. Others broke, voices cracking into silence. Maria, dragged to a colonnade, locked eyes with a young novice, barely 18, whose name was Anna, a orphan from the Jordan Valley. Her laughter once the convent's light. "Sing," Maria urged, blood trickling from her lip. They did, a fragile hymn against the grunts and gasps. When the soldiers tired, swords ended it. 400 blades fell, or so the ledgers claim. Bodies piled in the refectory, veiled no more, their blood seeping into flagstones worn by knees in prayer. Shahrbaraz, learning later, nodded approval. Khosrow's tally swelled. But in that courtyard, the system cracked, just a hair. One soldier, a conscript from the eastern marches, lowered his weapon at the last, muttering of a Christian mother left behind. He vanished into the dawn, a ghost in the machine. Breathe here. Amid the horror, picture the almond tree in the garden, its blossoms untouched, petals drifting like forgotten prayers onto the stones. A single bee hums, drawn to nectar no blade can sever. Life insists, even then. The machine didn't stop at Jerusalem's gates. It ground onward, its gears meshing across provinces. From Shahrbaraz's tent, couriers galloped to Ctesiphon, scrolls sealed with fire motifs, detailing spoils. The true cross on a cart draped in silk, Zachariah in chains beside it, 35,000 captives roped like harvest sheaves. Khosrow read them by lamplight, his queen Shirin at his side, a Christian from the hills of Armenia, her dark eyes reading the subtext of mercy he ignored. "Send the patriarch to me," he commanded, "not for trial, but display." Zachariah arrived months later, paraded through bazaars where merchants haggled over Byzantine silks looted from the fallen. In the provinces, the pattern repeated. Villages in Galilee emptied, their synagogues spared, but churches torched not by royal decree, but by captains chasing promotions for cleansed lands. Jewish allies, promised the temple stones, watched as Persian overseers tallied taxes in drachmae, incentives for informants who named hidden relics. Numbers became human again in whispers. A baker from Nablus, her oven cold forever. A fisherman from the Sea of Galilee, his nets tangled in the weeds of exile. One moment lingers, sharp as flint. In a hillside chapel near Bethany, a priest named Elias, gray-haired, voice like rolling thunder hid with 12 parishioners. Persians burst in at vespers, demanding icons. Elias held forth a wooden cross, plain as driftwood. "This is enough." The captain sneered, but paused. Elias's calm mirrored tales of their own fire priests. They left him bound, but alive, a rare hitch in the grind. From Zachariah's view in captivity, chained in a caravan snaking through Edessa's ruins, the empire revealed itself. Not a beast, but a web. Overseers reported to satraps to Shahrbaraz, whose dispatches flew to Khosrow like arrows. Incentives flowed back gold for zeal, demotion for mercy. Shirin, interceding in shadows, ransomed hundreds, her Christian heart a counterweight. Yet the toll mounted. 60,000 gone, by the lowest counts, their absence a hollow in the land's song. A quiet irony. Persian engineers, admiring Byzantine aqueducts, repaired them mid-march, ensuring water for the very fields they'd scorched. Beauty amid ruin, the machine's blind spot. Time slows now, the air thickening with the scent of myrrh and iron. On the 20th day after the walls fell, Shahrbaraz summoned his officers to the desecrated Holy Sepulchre. Its dome cracked like an eggshell. The true cross lay on a velvet bier, guarded by spearmen whose eyes darted to shadows. Zachariah, dragged from his tent, stood before them, chains clinking like bells tolling judgment. His face, bruised but unbowed, met the general's gaze. "You hold wood," the patriarch said, voice steady. "We hold its weight." Shahrbaraz leaned forward, his boar tusk amulet glinting. Khosrow's orders burned in his mind. Erase the faith that fueled Byzantine legions. Kneel to the shah and live. Zachariah's laugh echoed off the marble, drawing gasps from the captives huddled outside. I kneel to the one who rose from this stone. The general's hand twitched toward his hilt. Outside, the convent's survivors, or what remained, were herded to the pool's edge. Word had spread. Nuns, symbols of purity, were the final tally. Soldiers, weary of slaughter, hesitated at Maria's body, her hand still clutching Anna's veil. One murmured of dreams, fire turning to water. The line faltered, then the crack widened. A Jewish elder, Nehemiah ben Hushiel, governor, installed by the Persians, his dreams of temple stones crumbling, approached Shahrbaraz with a warning. Christians plotted in the alleys, their whispers of revolt growing. Nehemiah, son of exiles, had tasted power's ash. Spare the cross, he urged, voice low. Bind them with it. But the machine overrode. Swords rose again. At Mamilla, the waters boiled with the last stand, mothers shielding daughters, priests chanting over the din. 4,000 fell there, bodies sinking like stones in a well of judgment. Zachariah watched from the hill, his prayer a blade. Forgive them, for they tally souls like spice. The breaking came, not in blood, but backlash. As the last nun's cry faded, a soldier deserted, carrying tales to Byzantine scouts. Shahrbaraz's reports to Khosrow grew terse. Resistance simmered, supplies strained. The relic, meant as crown jewel, became curse, its weight slowing caravans, its aura stirring unrest. Khosrow, in Ctesiphon, paced gardens where Shirin pleaded for release. It poisons the victory, she said. He waved her off, but doubt crept in like dawn. The system, so efficient in conquest, choked on its spoils. Khosrow's end came swift as a scimitar. In 628, his son Kavadh II, imprisoned for suspected treason, then freed by nobles weary of endless war, stormed the palace. Khosrow, cornered in his bathhouse, begged for a bowstring's mercy, denied. His execution was quiet, a silk cord drawn tight by hands that once saluted him. Shahrbaraz, hearing the news in Jerusalem, burned his ledgers. The true cross returned with the peace. Zachariah, ransomed by Shirin before her own suicide, trudged home to a city of ghosts. Nehemiah's body, unearthed in a shallow grave, bore Christian cuts revenge from the revolt he failed to quell. The machine rusted, Persia fractured, ripe for Arab blades a decade later. Survivors scattered like seeds on scorched earth. Jerusalem's streets, once thrumming with Latin chants, fell silent under Persian governors who taxed without rebuilding. The convent on the mount lay empty, its garden overgrown, bees humming to no one. Zachariah rebuilt what he could, the sepulchre's dome patched with salvaged stone, but the wound festered. Byzantine Heraclius reclaimed the city in 629, only to lose it to Islam in 638. The relic's return, a fleeting balm. Long-term, the toll rippled. Christian heartlands depopulated, monasteries shuttered, fueling a diaspora that carried tales to Europe. Ironic twist, the true cross, Khosrow's prize, became Byzantium's rallying cry, its splinters relics that sparked crusades centuries on. What was meant to mock faith fueled it instead. Fast forward to 1989, dust of Jerusalem's edges stirring under trowels. Ronny Reich, a wiry archaeologist with eyes for hidden layers, knelt in a cave near Jaffa Gate. His team had chased whispers, a Byzantine tomb, perhaps. Instead, bones, hundreds, tangled like roots in dry soil, femurs snapped, skulls caved. Coins nearby, stamped with Heraclius's profile, pinned the date, 614. The Mamilla cave, as Strategius called it, yawned open, swallowing light. Reich traced a finger over a child's rib, his breath catching. This was no raid, he muttered to his notebook. This was erasure. What it proved chilled deeper than dust. Mass graves, 7 in all, holding thousands, confirmed the slaughter, but not the apocalypse of texts. No charred churches, no toppled columns. The city endured, its aqueducts flowing, homes reoccupied. Reich's finds humanized the abstract. Not 60,000 phantoms, but lives interrupted, a woman's bracelet twisted in flight, a man's signet ring stamped with a fish. Published in 2010, his work with Gideon Avni reshaped the tale. Violence real, but selective, the machine precise in its cruelty. Today, that cave lies sealed, a quiet testament under modern streets where tourists sip coffee oblivious. But the bones whisper. Power breaks bodies, but memory mends the map. Return to that courtyard on the mount, where petals fell on stone grown cold. The nuns' voices, silenced then, echo still in the wind through olive leaves. They were meant to vanish, tallied as numbers in a shah's scroll. But they didn't. Their story clings to the very soil Khosrow's boots trod, unearthed by hands like Reich's, preserved in words like Strategius's. And now, they're here, with you, because you chose to listen through the dust and screams. If this shadow lingers, drop a comment below. What machine in our world echoes this one? Your voice keeps their light burning. Thank you for staying.